Why is Mark Milley still there? Why is this man still America's top general, head of the Joint Chiefs? I've got to ask because I wonder what part of the word treason does Mark Milley not get? And does the mainstream media that's defending him, what part of it don't they get? And Joe Biden, what about him? Now, we keep getting told by the mainstream media, the media left, that Donald Trump was actually the threat to US democracy.
Tonight, how a defeated, disgraced, and now twice impeached president brought US democracy to the brink of destruction.
But this turns out to be just projection from the left, because the real enemies of US democracy always seem to me to be Trump's enemies. The kind of State Department and FBI leakers and the rest of them who tried so hard to destroy their elected president, even peddling a dossier full of lies about Trump's supposed collusion with Russia. Now, I thought all that was terrible enough, but Mark Milley now comes along and tops it all. And again, I ask, why is he still there? What part of the word treason does he not understand? Of course, the leftist CNN did not quite put it like that when reporting the sensational revelations from Bob Woodward's latest anti-Donald Trump book.
The Peril of Trump. America's top general, just 2 days after the January 6th Capitol insurrection, so worried about the then president's angry and erratic behavior, he called a secret meeting with top deputies, including the chain of command for the country's nuclear arsenal. General Mark Milley's message at that meeting: no one was to act on any orders for military strikes, even from the president, unless Milley, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs, was personally involved in the sign-off as called for by Pentagon protocols.
I have to point out to CNN, that's actually not quite the whole story. It's certainly not the worst bit of it, and you buried the lead. What General Mark Milley reportedly did, according to this new book, sounds to me exactly like treason, because according to this book, he twice called his counterpart in the Chinese dictatorship, General Li Zhuochang. Now, first he told General Li, don't worry about all this controversy over the election, the one that Donald Trump was claiming was stolen. Don't worry, I want to assure you that the American government is stable and everything is going to be okay. Don't panic. But then General Milley really crossed the line. According to him, he said, General Li, you and I have known each other for now 5 years. If we're going to attack, I'm going to call you ahead of time. It's not going to be a surprise. So let me understand this. The top general of the US military is saying here that if he got a lawful order from his elected president to attack China, he'd warn China first. So presumably, it could then fight back harder or get in first with a nuclear strike against America, or somehow organise itself to kill more Americans than it otherwise would. I'm guessing here. Now, Mark Milley is claiming that somehow this is all fine, this call of his, this promise to give a warning ahead of any attack, is just routine, it's just calming things down. And according to some spokesman of his, it was all run through the then acting Defence Secretary beforehand. Got it all approved by Acting Secretary of Defence Christopher Miller. Except, of course, that is not quite how Miller remembers it. He says he never authorised any secret calls with Milley's Chinese contact. In fact, he calls these calls a disgraceful and unprecedented act of insubordination and says Milley should resign. And Donald Trump is also amazed, and rightly so.
So first of all, if it is actually true, which is hard to believe, that he would have called China and done these things and was willing to advise them of an attack or in advance of an attack, that's treason. And I would think, I've had so many calls today saying that's treason. For him to say that I was going to attack China is the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard.
Now, I can't believe there is any argument about this, whether this is treason or not. To me, if Milley made those calls, and he doesn't deny it, out he goes. Out, out, out. Because for one, the idea that Donald Trump would try to stay in office by ordering an attack on China is nuts. It actually shows how deranged Milley was to even think that. What kind of judgment does that man have? But then, let's humour Milley's fantasy. If Donald Trump did order such an attack, hypothetically, Milley's correct option, if he thought such an attack was wrong, would have been to resign. Not to warn China ahead of time, simply to resign and then say why. That'd be all the warning that China would have needed anyway. But that would have been the proper thing to do, not exceeding his authority. Yet he did take it on himself to act like an elected leader, which he is not. He took it on himself to promise China that he would warn it of any attack, which, by the way, was simply grandstanding. You really think China would have even believed that? Really? I think they would have thought he was playing them for suckers. But anyway, that would have been the proper thing to do, to simply resign. Now, if you still think, fair enough, Milley did the right thing, promising China, I'll warn you ahead of time, ask yourself this. How many other US officers, senior officers, generals, admirals, how many of them are now allowed to follow their top general's example? A captain decides, look, I'm going to ring a captain I know in China or Russia. A general decides, look, I don't like this command I've been given either. I'm going to ring General Yang or General Hu or whatever and say, listen, I don't like the order I've been given to attack you, and so I'm going to warn you. I'm going to warn you too. If it's okay for General Milley, it's okay for me too. Or is it just Milley who can run his own foreign policy? Is it only Milley who can tip off America's enemies? It's just extraordinary that this should be even contemplated for a second as, well, this is the right thing for General Milley to do. Joe Biden thinks, hey, the man's a great patriot, I'm sticking with him. But would he say the same if Milley warns America's enemies of any attack that Biden orders as well? The man has got to go.